Hey, vinyl community, welcome to the end of February or so. Maybe early March by the time I post this, but we're almost at spring. We're almost there. We got about 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks in my parts, but you know what? That's close enough to celebrate. So cheers, everyone. It's been a long winter, but we all know what spring brings us. Warmer weather, yes, but we have what's commonly referred to as spring cleaning, when people get their albums out and they donate them, and I like to buy them. So yeah, that's probably my favorite part of spring. Actually, that's not true. The increased temperature is my favorite part of spring. But yeah, that's exciting, just for a change in the season, finally. Anyways, I don't have a lot to talk about, hence me talking about the weather again. But that is exciting. It's going to warm up. If you live where I live, it's cause for celebration. Don't have a lot to show you. I think my last video took a long time to get to my first video, one take, my first album. So we're going to dispense with all that. Mostly vinyl, but I have something different to show you. When I kind of troll around the thrift stores, it's not just vinyl and music I look for. I don't overtly go out and look for other things, but sometimes something's just there, and it's so cool you have to get it. I'm going to show you something. Are you a classic retro video game nerd, collector, fan? I found this. I forgot to show this a couple of videos ago. It's been sitting here, and I've been enjoying it. It's hooked up here, so I'm going to try not to pull the cords too tightly. But it's a 1977 Atari C380. Original pinball video game system, like I said, from 1977. It's in perfect working condition. This kind of looks like the old Pong system we used to know when we were kids in the late 70s. But this is actually, I think it incorporates that as well, but it's video pinball, which was quite new technology back then. But look at that at a thrift store. Atari C380 from 1977, and there's got the flippers on that side, and if you want to play a paddle control game like Pong, etc., there's your paddle there. So there you go. How cool is that? It's just history if nothing else, and it's in working condition, which is even better. But when I was a kid, we did have a Pong system. We didn't have anything as advanced as the Atari C380 video pinball system, but now I do. Many years later. So anyways, that's a rare example of something I'll show you on my videos that's not music related, and that was just too cool. And how I knew it was cool, I was with my wife, and they must have just put it out because I was kind of walking, and this is true. If my wife was here, I'd say, please tell everyone. As I found it, I'm walking to the till, and I had 3 people follow me, wanting to look at it and trying to figure out if I was actually going to get it, and seeing if I would put it down. And no, I'm too wily for that. I'm too experienced for that. So yeah, that was kind of funny. People following me up to the till, trying to get that off my hands. It's mine. All right, some really quick cassettes. To show you. Some people like the cassettes, as I always say, but Lita Ford, her kind of breakthrough album, Lita. Let's show that again. Some Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd, The Works. Pink Floyd, The Final Cut. I think I might have this one already. And Crocus, Change of Address, which had the colored case. And this must be a U.S. release, because I think it only came out in the U.S. like that, yeah. So, Crocus, Change of Address. That's the extent of the cassettes to show you. And one CD. And really been enjoying this one. It's John Coltrane Ballads with McCoy Tyner and Elvin Jones on drums. More than one drum, because that would be pretty boring if he was pounding one drum. But really quickly, when it comes to jazz, as I've talked about before, jazz is It's a rabbit hole you could fall into. It's a quagmire of trying to figure out what's good, what's not good. I've been finding a lot of jazz CDs like this for $1 or $2, you know, and it's a really good way to investigate jazz that you might like without spending the $20-30 on vinyl. And you might not find the exact CD you're looking for to investigate on vinyl, but what I'm trying to get at is, let's say you find this, it's John Coltrane on Impulse. You can get the year off when it was recorded. You can kind of, all of Coltrane was all over the place. You can kind of figure out, yeah, I do like this. I do like this era of Coltrane. I'm going to investigate that era of his Impulse albums. And then you can kind of figure out what Impulse albums, because it's, when you're getting into jazz vinyl, it's almost like you're putting a blindfold on and you're trying to figure out things. So when you see classic or well-known jazz artists at thrift stores, pick them up because it's a good way to investigate their work without spending tons of dough on their vinyl. That's what I do anyways. And then I'll keep the CDs for my car and the vinyl. I play on that thing right there. Or that thing behind me over there. Anyways, let's get to the vinyl. It's definitely quality over quantity today. And I've not been really out a whole lot. But one new record to show you. I got a quick story about Collective Soul. This was just released last week to retail anyways. I got this on Amazon. It's Collective Soul Live. And I like Collective Soul. Much like when I showed you the Silverchair album, you almost feel like you have to make, you have to apologize for liking them. But I don't. And I'll tell you why. First of all, this was released in 2017, and you know what, I couldn't be arsed to do a lot of investigation. But what I figured out, I think, roughly, is that this was a Pledge Music item. And with any excess stock, this happened with an artist named Wendy James that I bought, who did a Pledge Music album. She X of Transvision Vamp. Any excess stock they will sell off to, you know, to retail outlets. So from what I can gather, and I could be wrong, it wouldn't be the first time, this was a Pledge Music album, and then they kind of got the excess stock after they fulfilled their orders, and then they set a release date for commercial release, and this was this. Really quickly, I think I've mentioned this before when I was talking about the Silverchair album, this is one of those bands, they are very, very big in Western Canada, especially my city. And every time they would come through town from their first album, Hints Allegations, right to, you know, they had a streak of about 4 or 5 really big albums in the 90s, maybe early 2000s. This is when I was in retail. Warner Music. There was a couple really awesome reps. There was Laura. If you're local, you might know what I'm talking about. Laura. There was Lena. There was Dean at Warner Music. Anyways, this is back in the days when you would get flown to see a new artist in a different city. We would get flown to Vancouver, Calgary. We'd get flown all over the place to see a band, to see a new emerging artist. Those were the days, unlimited spending. They would fly managers and stuff all over. Anyways, back in, you know, the early 90s, when the record industry was still thriving, you could get tickets to any show, you could meet any artist, and this is how I've kind of met everyone I've ever wanted to meet, more or less. But Collective Soul is one of those bands that Warner would really encourage us to go meet, because they were trying to break them at the time and kind of keep the momentum going. And a lot of these bands you begrudgingly go, just, you know, it's like I said, it's a big greasy handshake, but it kind of benefits everyone. Yeah, I'll go meet this band and I'll place an order for that, but I need to give you, you need to, please give me tickets for this show, or I want to see this band, I really want to see, it's kind of like a, it's all insider trading in the music retail world. Anyways, Collective Soul was one of those bands I didn't really want to meet. Didn't particularly like their first album. I still don't, it's okay. And they are the nicest guys. And this is a case in point when a band really, I think they're genuinely nice. I think they're from Atlanta, so they have that southern hospitality thing that is really true in this case. And they made you feel like they're your friend. To the point of every time I would go meet them on another album tour, They would remember my name. They would remember where I worked if I was still at that store, if I hadn't moved on to a different store. And one time, I believe it was Dean, the guitar player, or Ed Rowland maybe. Maybe it was Ed Rowland. He remembered the jacket I wore on the last backstage a couple of years previously, or a year previously, because it was a really kind of loud leopard skin jacket. And he remembered me from that leopard skin jacket. And those are the little things you remember. And they made you a fan. They were so nice. And it ends up, yeah, I kind of did listen to their albums more in depth, and I really like Collective Soul, and that's my Collective Soul story, and I'm not embarrassed. I don't even know why I feel embarrassed. They have riffs coming out of their ass. Listen to some of their heavier stuff. It's riff, and more riffs. Anyways, double album, Collective Soul Live, and that was my Collective Soul story for what it's worth. The nicest guys, probably. I've said this about a lot of bands. Collective Soul is probably number one of just the nicest, most genuine guys I've ever met. And there is a kind of a side story about, I'll tell it in a different video. They were having some kind of internal fight, and me and the label and some other people were back there witnessing it, and it led to a band member leaving. It's another story. It was a very odd moment. All right, let's get to these three. If you're on the YouTube vinyl community, I had my wife take a photo of me at the thrift store with these records. Because I was very pleased, although a photo I posted, I wasn't smiling or anything. Because, you know, poker face. When you're at thrift stores, you got to have your poker face on. You don't want to let everyone know that you found gold. Anyways, I found 3 Miles Davis albums. And I'm going to, I'll show them at the end to make up my screen cap because they're kind of cool. I found... I should take it out just to... anyways, you'll believe me when I say this is an original Columbia 2i pressing, I thought it was 70, but it might be 69, of Bitches Brew. It's pretty nice, VG+, plays beautiful. Water Babies, Miles Davis. I know nothing about this album other than it's 1976, is it? It has Herbie Hancock on it and Ron Carter and Wayne Shorter. I see people post this in the vinyl community, and it just, the cover is very, what am I trying to say about the album cover? It commands your attention. It's such a nice piece of art, representational of the time. But Miles Davis, Water Babies, I actually haven't had a chance to give this a spin yet. But people have assured me that it's a very good album. That's an original pressing as well. And an original Columbia 2i pressing. I say it's original, but I actually haven't looked on Discogs for this one. But I don't know if they're... I'm trying to think now. Yeah, okay, I think it is true. Some Columbia 4Is did get re-released as 2Is, and then they got re-released as a different Columbia label. So I'm not going to proclaim this to be an original pressing, because I just haven't... once again, been arsed to look. But anyways, Columbia 2i pressing of Miles Davis in a Silent Way. Those were the 3 big ones. And pretty amazing. The only thing wrong is that there's a slight blemish on in a Silent Way that I thought might be a problem, but my record player plays, or my turntable. It's 2018 turntable. Plays over it just fine. I think maybe if you had like a Crosley or something, it might skip on something like that. But my turntable played over it really nicely, so no issues at all with those. I'm just gonna frame these for my screen cap because I don't like to go back and retake these damn things. There you go. Miles Davis, 3 Miles Davis records. I was particularly happy to find this one, and I had it in my collection about 10 years ago. I bought a collection off someone, a rather large collection off someone about 10 years ago or so, and this album I was aware of, might have heard a few tracks off of, but it just, with me I go I'm into streaks of things, like, I'm listening to jazz, and then I'm listening to a lot of, Brit pop, or I'm listening to power pop, or I'm listening to psych or prog, and sometimes when you cleanse your collection, you get rid of a lot of stuff that later on, a couple years later, you're like, oh, I had that record and I sold it. Which is the case with this album. But I found a super, super clean album of Robin Trower, Bridge of Sighs. And I was really excited to get this one back. Not that it's the hardest album to find, but, you know, I didn't want to spend 10, 15 bucks on it, so I found it for cheap. Really super clean copy. And I finally did re-listen to the whole album, and it's everything people say it is. It's probably one of the best albums. I mean, it has an aura around it, or it has a mystique around it with music fans as being one of the best albums of its genre, and it is. It's a very good album if you're into kind of Robin Trower. His guitar playing on this album is just amazing. So Robin Trower, Bridge of Sighs. Very, very, very excited to find that one. One second. I'm going to try and make this really short video today for those of you who tucker out on my longer ones. This was the same night I got the Miles Davis. I got Spencer Davis, 1967. This is an oddity. If you look on Discogs, there's one version of this from Canada. And the best I can tell, this record label, this was an early incarnation of a label that distributed Island Records. Anyways, that's a total aside. But as far as I can tell, this is a Canadian-only kind of... it's kind of like a compilation album, more or less, to introduce the Spencer Davis Group into Canada. More or less. And right there, you'll have a very, very, very young Stevie Winwood. Guessing he was maybe, what, 16 at the time? He went on to be in Traffic and Blind Faith and a bunch of other bands. But anyways, yeah, very interesting album by the Spencer Davis Group, 1967. I was pretty happy to find that. I like anything derivative of Cream, I buy. So Spencer Davis is kind of one generation removed, not generation, but one band removed from Cream, that being Blind Faith. So to me, already, that's pretty awesome. I'm a big Cream fan. Spencer Davis, 1967. Here's an oddity for you that I'm going to need some help with. I did look it up. I did play it. It is a very interesting folk psych album. It's called Bob Ray, Initiation of a Mystic. Cover's been through the mill. Vinyl's okay. It's on Soul City Records, 1969. I'm not sure if you're even picking up the Soul City label there. Very interesting record, to say the least. One of those albums I bought on a hunch. 1969, like I said. I wish I had a better cover, but if you go on Discogs, the cover that is shown there is probably the same condition as this one, so I'm not sure. Finding a nice one is hard, but Bob Ray, Initiation of a Mystic. Very, very interesting folk psych tinged album. That was an interesting blind buy. And of course, we're going to end here. Well, I don't know why I say of course, but we'll end here with a member of Soft Machine, Robert Wyatt. This is his 1984 EP. It's a gold stamp promo, if you can see there, of Work in Progress. Robert Wyatt. Like I said, he of X of Soft Machine. Don't know what to say about this album. After he left Soft Machine, he made a lot of really weird albums. Psychedelic, art rock kind of things. This definitely falls into that camp. Work in Progress. The title should tell you kind of. It is kind of a really off the wall, in progress album, if you will. Anyways, that's a really nice on Rough Trade Records, 1984. 4-track EP. That's it. And that's all. I'm not going to drag this out too much. I just want to say thank you once again for those watching my videos. I want to give a shout out to Matt Hayes. I've never given Matt Hayes a shout out. So Matt, I hope you're doing well. I think I'm friends with Matt on Facebook, so but there you go. Anyways, take care everyone. We'll see you next time. I do have, in the last video I mentioned I have a Grail item coming. It's not come, thanks mail system, for which I work. 4. I got a bunch of other stuff coming. Not a lot, just a lot of really cool finds I've been having, other than my local city, that are coming in the mail. So we'll get to that in upcoming videos. It's springtime. Anyways, if everything holds true and it's going to be spring cleaning, I'll have lots of good records to show you this spring. So stay tuned. Take care, everyone. And yeah, this is a very short video for me. 20 minutes, not too bad.